Thank you so much, first of all, Chair and Committee, for allowing us to come speak here today. I'm speaking on behalf of 21,000 full-time students at Durham College and UOIT. I am the current president of the Student Association of Durham and UOIT. We're here today because we were made aware of a Treasury report before you today proposing a 25% increase in the UPass from 2017 to 2018. I'll be relatively brief. You guys have a letter that I've submitted to the committee as well as a piece of correspondence. I do want to highlight a few things in that letter. Students are facing at UOIT and Durham College extremely high fees. UOIT students pay the highest on average tuition fees in all of Canada. And we have a youth unemployment rate right now in Durham region of over 20%. UOIT and Trent and Durham College bring a significant amount of economic activity to the region of Durham. And it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm actually just waiting for UOIT to send me an updated economic impact report on their operations. My concern today and what we're asking is for the committee to refer this proposal to the advisory committee, the Transit Advisory Committee, and to have it come back to this committee for the next December 2nd meeting. The reason we're asking for that is because we had only found out late on the weekend. I think the committee only got the report late last week. And given this potential significant economic impacts on this, if we lose that competitive edge for recruitment at the schools, this could have a significant impact economically on the region in terms of bringing that economic growth into the region that we need. In fact, I know Councillor Collier at our last advisory committee meeting even mentioned that there's been oftentimes transit issues that have gone to council prior to the advisory committee meeting, and the advisory committee meeting was discussing on the 22nd of September about the need for more consultation and community input on decisions that are affecting stakeholders in the community, such as students and community members. So we're not asking for a yes or no from this committee today. We're asking to refer this back to the advisory committee. I believe our next meeting is in late November. That will give the community its ability to perform its function in the advisory committee to give some input on this proposed increase. It will also give members of council who are duly elected representatives of residents in Durham region the opportunity to do their due diligence as well. I think there's impacts here that we're not quite sure what they are. And I know that councillors around this table take their job very seriously, as do staff at the region. And I think it's only doing our due diligence first as representatives of students and yourselves as representatives of residents of Oshawa and Durham region to do our due diligence to examine the potential impacts of an increase of 25%.
Look at a student's budget. How much of would the UPass be of that budget for those that do take transit?
So we understand what it takes, the hard work to go through post-secondary, but the reality is OSAP students, it just doesn't get you to the end of the day. So the last month or so before your next OSAP installment comes, you are literally living hand to mouth. And we have to cut back. Sometimes we put off paying a portion of the bill until our next OSAP comes. So literally every dollar counts, I would say. I think that's a reasonable request. Obviously, I think folks around the table are going to know my position on the increase. But I think there are impacts of this that may not be fully understand right now. So our request today is not a yes or no vote on this proposal. It's literally to get more impact assessment and get some feedback from stakeholders in the community so we're able to fully understand what this means for students and a broader community. Because even if it's $30 out of your budget for the month, and that might not sound much for an individual, but if you take $30 out of every single student's pocket for 21,000 students, that quickly adds up to diminished purchasing power for students in the local economy, right? And that's money they would otherwise be spending in local businesses. So I think, in a technical recession, I know this original recommendation was made in 2013, but I'd propose to you and posit to you that the world has changed since 2013, and sending a signal out to the community and prospective students around Durham region and of course Ontario and Canada that we're not willing to invest in our young people might not be the right message for Durham region right now. So I just think that it's our due diligence to investigate that to the fullest extent.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Cullen, for your presentation. And I can understand why you would prefer to have this tabled. The question I would ask is, obviously the Transit Commission only has so much money to work with, and we have to raise funds from various sources. So if we leave this at the rate that you prefer, who should we raise?
We need to look at this in the broad context, right? So Absolutely, transit needs to be funded from somewhere, and I would again posit to you that students are also taxpayers. The money we spend in the community, either on our rent, which our landlords pay property taxes, or at the local businesses that we frequent pay property taxes as well. And I think what I'm trying to get across is that there's a broader economic picture here and a broader fiscal picture here that should view the UPass not only just as one expenditure, but if you put a barrier to recruitment for the schools in Durham Region, which are now some of the largest employers in Durham Region, you'll actually significantly impact revenues from a general point of view in terms of the region and economic development. So we might be cutting off our nose to spite our face, right? So we may have some short-term fiscal room to wiggle in, but what does that mean long-term, and what kind of economic impact is that going to have? And are we able to, if students choose not to go to Durham College, UOIT, and Trent, and we start seeing declining enrollment, and we start seeing layoffs in the community and less faculty hired, and less students choosing to live here and spending money in the local economy, that's also going to impact our revenues as a region. So I think that's the message I'm trying to get across here today, is that there are broader impacts I think we need to examine before making a decision.
Do you view transit from a broader perspective, that we would have to, say, raise fees on other individuals, or do you think that we should start looking at transit as a more holistic approach to even the playing field out for more residents that are in poverty? And so instead of the concept that we need to raise transit fees for other people in order to subsidize the UPass, we need to look at other net revenue streams and other ways to deal with this issue than the constant raising of fees?
Well, I think that transit is part of our social and physical infrastructure, right? And we know that businesses like to invest in communities that have robust infrastructure. So we need to look at broadening our tax base, which will relieve the burden on every taxpayer. And I think transit, in terms of an economic mechanism, has the ability to do that and make our community more attractive to invest, live, work, and play, and study. So on the economic front, I think it actually broadens our tax base and contributes to economic growth. In terms of poverty, health, we all know, and I hope folks have looked into social determinants of health. The UN has done a lot of work on that. We know that more people in cars contributes to health problems in the community, which is going to cost us money down the road in other ways that we're not calculating in this particular framework right now. So yes, there are some short-term costs associated with transit, but I think there's long-term costs that affect the community, whether it be poverty, whether it be your trips to the hospital, that cars contribute to increased rates of asthma, they increase folks' likelihood to live in poverty if you don't have social mobility, connect with jobs. Right now, if a student in Durham Region wants to get a job out in the west end of the region as well, we have to look at having a robust transit system so that we can reduce our unemployment rate for youth, right? So there's a whole bunch of social benefits that come along with robust social and physical infrastructure that I think aren't captured in this Treasurer's report. And that's the message I'm trying to get off to the committee today, is that there are more abstract, intangible issues here that I think we need to consider before making a final decision.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Thank you. We have 5 minutes.
As another recommendation, I also echo or second Jesse's recommendation for tabling this until further notice. One thing I wanted to add to is we would appreciate at Trent Durham to have more student consultation with these. This is something, I know you don't typically negotiate with students, and I understand negotiating with students can be difficult at times, but at least the environment that I'm familiar with is the student voice is very important, especially when it comes to something that directly affects students. So I would ask that in the future that more student consultation would be considered, and if there is something that is affecting students directly, that their voices will be heard. And that's all from me. These are the numbers exact in my head, but I do not, no.
Do you know what PO is?
No, I do not. I'm aware that it's expensive, but in terms of actually having this type of system or path that is specific to students, it is the second most expensive in that context.
So how long is a semester, so everyone on the commission understands? How long is a commission? How long is a semester at UOIT or Trent or Durham College?
Semester is typically 4 months.
4 months?
Yeah.
So on a monthly basis, how much do you think you should pay for a bus?
I don't have I don't have knowledge of what I should be paying, but
Take a bus?
I do not. Yes, I do not. Sorry.
So what do you think the people you represent should pay? Would $50 a month be fair?
A reasonable rate, I would say.
$50 a month reasonable? $10
No, I'm not going to comment on that. I don't have the numbers exact in my mind, and I don't know what is
How much a
reasonable.
day do you think a bus is worth to a student?
I don't have those answers.
Mr. Chair, just as a point of order, or
Since you're not a member here, what do you want?
I just appreciate that cross debating is typically not allowed, and that
Okay, don't personally.
And I also have-
Don't even try and tell me how to run a meeting. But second of all, I ask questions. How much do you think a bus pass is worth a week? How much do you think it's worth a day? He's here representing a whole bunch of students. He should know these answers, or what he thinks
I
would be
think it's the way in
reasonable.
which the question is asked. I
I'm
also
not
raised
gonna
my
debate
hand.
on it.
I'm sorry, I
Ms.
had raised
England?
my I
Councillor
raised my
England?
hand, but you hadn't seen me, so I didn't want to
Oh, no,
interrupt.
I did see it, but the committee members speak first.
I just assumed the chair always spoke last, so my apologies.
Not this one. Speak whenever he wants.
Just a question in terms